Hey guys, are you ready for today's August 26, 2022, 9:42 a.m. Central Time. So this is part 2 simple version. A few of you got a hold of me and said, how in the hell does this HEROES Act you are referencing that has to do with active military have to do with the general public? I understand the attention span is really low out there. I get it. It's hard to listen to legislation. I get it. And sometimes it's confusing. And I did go word for word and did commentary explaining that word for word, but sometimes it's confusing. I get it. I forget that I'm not talking to myself. And I forget also that this could be seen by first-time viewers who have no idea what I'm doing. So this is going to be super simple for anyone to understand. The authority Biden is using for student loan handouts, part 2, simple version. He's using the coronavirus pandemic, a national emergency, which is actually a document that he extended in February of 2022, extending that national emergency indefinitely, which is actually a scary thought. By doing that, he was able to manipulate what he's attempting to do using this act. This is the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act of 2003. It's also known as the HEROES Act. Congress created this law for active military of all branches during the Iraq-Afghan war for anyone who had outstanding loans, so they would not default on their loans, okay, while they were serving. That's why this exists. Then that's where people were like, how does that relate to the general public? Very simple. They took a definition, and I'll show it to you, and manipulated it, okay? So what Congress does in this document is it gives guidelines, basically, to the Secretary of the Department of Education, which is what he's using now. The Department of Education is going to use similar guidelines that are in here and what Biden came up with, okay, his little 10,000 for this, 20,000 for this. The Secretary of Education is going to create guidelines based on the authority in this document because he's saying that the general public does apply to this law by this definition. In the guidelines that Congress gave to the Secretary of Education, they use a simple term, okay? They use a simple term called affected individuals. Every piece of legislation has definitions of what they're talking about. In this legislation, this law, okay, they describe in the definitions what affected individual is right here in section 5. There are, I think, all the way to D. So there's A, B, C, and D of what the affected individual might be and who it actually applies to. We're going to go over them real quick. It says A, in serving on active duty during a war or other military operation or national emergency. So that has to do with military. B, is performing qualifying National Guard duty during war or other military operations or national emergency. Again, military. This is the definition in which he warps, is C. Resides, so the affected individual resides or is employed in an area that is declared a disaster area by any federal, state, or local official in connection with a national emergency. Okay? And add D, suffered direct economic hardship as a direct result of war or other military operations or national emergency as determined by the Secretary. So they're using the definitions of affected individual, C and D of this section 5, to justify it blanketing the entire United States of America versus just the military. And that's what they're doing. That's how they are giving themselves this authority. They are manipulating to death this law. This will not hold up in court, okay? And the reason it won't hold up in court is simply why the HEROES Act exists. But here, think of it this way. If that law applied to the entire United States when it was passed in 2003. The way they are attempting to use it now, saying it does apply to the public, then why didn't it apply to the public back in 2003, right? Everyone should be having student loan forgiveness and their loan amounts changed, payments changed, and all this stuff since 2003. If that law really did apply to the entire United States of American public. But it didn't. It simply applied to active military, again, for Iraq-Afghan war. So that's how this happened. That's the authority Biden is using. So he's using the coronavirus pandemic as a national emergency for the basis. He's using the law to manipulate what was done for active military during the Iraq-Afghan war, using the Secretary of Education to create new guidelines to publish in the Federal Register so it applies to the entire United States of America. I hope that is a better explanation than my last video, as it was very in-depth. This is Are You Ready For It? Take care, guys. Have a great day.